What's going on, and welcome to the first episode of Redefining Issued Equipment. In this video, we're going to be going over the M4 side-by-side pouch, or it also is commonly known as the 3-mag panel. This is what it's going to look like when you first get it out of the package or out of your rifleman kit, and then this is what it's going to pretty much look like when you are done putting the entire pouch together. Granted, I am going to go over the entire process of how to build these tabs and the elastic loops and retention to be able to retain that mag and give you that active retention, rather than just having these snap links and or no retention if you just tuck these snap links in the nylon tabs into the pouch. So this is what it will look like, but I will get into how to put it all together so that way you can see what the whole pouch looks like when you have all three done. And then I'm going to talk a little bit on the equipment up here and what you see, so then that way it gives you an idea of what equipment you're going to need, what you need to ask from supply, because you can't get all of this equipment from supply. With that said, the why behind this pouch and modifying this pouch, a lot of guys that I know, and even myself, have experienced issues with this pouch out of the packaging not being able to retain mags. And when you start moving and you're running and gunning, or you're moving on the battlefield, trying to move from cover to cover, I have seen and I have experienced guys with magazines in this pouch, and they just fall right out. So when you actually take a magazine, even if you fold these tabs in, you put that mag in there, you start shaking this a little bit, and it's going to fall right out. Now, with this active retention on here with the bungee cord and that pull tab, even when you get on the ground and let's say you offload a helicopter and you pull all these tabs off to the side, or you've just done an airborne op, you jumped out of an aircraft, you had all of your equipment on, you have these tabs holding those mags in place. You get on the ground, you're like, all right, I'm in the battle, I'm in the fight, I'm going to pull those tabs off to the side. Even when you start moving, a lot and you start getting a lot of movement in these pouches, that active retention of that bungee cord is going to push that magazine into the side of this mag panel and hold that in place. And then when you start stacking multiple mags in here, what you're going to find is they're really not going to move at all. So that's what this video is about, is giving you that active retention for this magazine pouch, so that in that way it's doing a better job, it's being more functional, and it's enabling you to retain your equipment, especially when it's a life-saving piece of equipment, because it's your ammo. And when you're starting to look at that whole shoot, move, communicate, and medicate piece of being a dude on the ground, you want to retain the things that are going to keep you in the fight. So with that said, I'm going to jump right into this and kind of talk about how you're going to get it, and we'll go into the things that you're going to need, and then we'll actually put it together. So when you get this piece of equipment, you're going to have these nylon tabs with the snap links on them. I personally don't like them. I've never cut them out. I've known dudes that have taped them in there, but with the adhesive, and you start thinking about heat in certain hot environments, that adhesive is going to melt, and then it's going to start making a mess on the inside of this pouch, which then can gum up the mags, which then can gum up the system if you start looking at worst case scenarios. So I prefer to just fold these tabs right into place, and that's all you got to do. You fold them in place, they're going to stay in place, and no matter whether or not you're putting the mag in the pouch or out, or pulling the mag out of the pouch, you really shouldn't have a whole lot of issues with it. Some guys I know, they went to the extreme of just cutting them completely out. So just taking into consideration with issued equipment, you're probably gonna have to replace it if you do that. But if you're in a unit in an organization that doesn't allow you to buy your own equipment, this is a way to solve that problem and be able to get you a piece of equipment or modify the piece of equipment to be able to be more functional and enable you on the battlefield. So fold those tabs in, and that's pretty much the first step to modifying this piece of equipment. I'm going to pull this out of the way so you don't have to worry about it. And then when it comes to the things that you're going to need for this pouch, you're going to need some shock cord or bungee cord. I prefer using 1/8 inch, like this right here, the smaller strand that you can see, but 3/16 of an inch will work as well. They both work. I've used aftermarket pouches that have both, so it's entirely up to you on what you want to buy and what you want to put in there. I don't have any quarrel or problem with any version of it or size, so it's just whatever you have available to you, go ahead and grab that. Supply should have either one of those, so it's too easy to go down to supply and be able to get that equipment to be able to modify the pouch. In conjunction with that, tubular nylon or just a nylon strap. It doesn't matter what you want to go with or what you whatever you can get your hands on is whatever you can get your hands on. I think the nylon strap does a better job just because it creates a cleaner kind of pull tab on top. The tubular nylon works really well though too. If you want, you can, after you've kind of sewn this all together, which is why you want to have the sewing kit, you can use electrical tape or heat shrink on the top to be able to keep everything in place. And then you just have your little hole at the bottom to run that bungee cord through or shock cord through, and you're good to go, and you're putting the entire pouch together. So when it comes to actually putting this whole thing together, you're going to want a sewing kit. Most units that I've been in and worked with require everybody to have a sewing kit anyways, so I think it's a good thing to have because you can always fix or modify your equipment just with a couple minor stitches and minor modifications. So whether you use the tubular nylon or the nylon strap, you just take that, fold it almost in half, but you still have a little bit of overlap, and then you pull that overlap like so. You have that loop or that opening for your shock cord right there, and then you just stitch across the top of this just in a straight line, and then you have your pull tab right there. And then you can, like this one, take that electrical tape or heat shrink and then have that to give it a little bit of a gripping surface. I always like using heat shrink or electrical tape just because I think having that little bit of a kind of plastic rubbery feel just gives it a better gripping surface. It's easier to grip onto and pull out of the way. So that's why I recommend it, but it's completely up to you. If you don't want to use the tubular nylon and you want to just use the nylon strap, I just fold this in half and then stitch it across the top, so then that way you have that loop right there. If you want to, you absolutely can do the whole fold over thing like that. Just realize that it may make this, depending on how many inches you give yourself, it may make it a little bit shorter than what you see here on this pouch. So that's why you want the sewing kit. That's why you want to have those to be able to build the that little nylon loop, no matter what you're using. And then you get to this point where you're starting to assemble everything. So with this, you have your shock cord or bungee cord building the loop to be able to retain the mag, and then you just tie it off to the back. If you want to get nice and neat with this and you don't want these running tails on the back side, by all means you can cut that down and shrink it down a little bit, but it really doesn't matter when it comes down to it. I never really noticed these when I had these set up. So with that said, setting this up, you're going to start on the front side and you're just going to split the shock cord just like that, equal on either side, and then run this through either side of the MOLLE that is on the front of this pouch. Pull that all the way through, and then you're going to take your tab and you're going to run that shock cord straight through there. Flip it over to the other side, and you're going to just unbuckle this, tie your loop and kind of measure it off based off of everything that you have over here, and just a simple overhand knot. Tighten that up. Kind of eyeball it to see how it fits with the in comparison to the other ones, and then you're just taking this MOLLE strap on the back, running it through there and clipping it into place. And you can pull on this and adjust this knot as needed, and that's really it when it comes down to it. So flip this back over, and then you can just take your mags, throw them right in the pouches. And you'll see here, kind of like I was talking at the beginning of the video, when you put all the mags in here, these elastic loops are going to help give you that retention on the magazines, but the mags pushing over from each mag to the next is going to give you the ability to have a little bit more active retention on there. So I'm going to get this in here. Pull this on the other side. One of the easier things, just pull the loops on top, so then that way you can actually get the mag in there. So once you get that in there, you have your pull tabs that are going to retain those mags. So whether you're doing airborne ops with aircraft, jumping out of the aircraft, you're in a helicopter and you're doing like air-land missions and you're infilling via helicopter and exfilling via helicopter, especially with Black Hawks. I know in SOF, like, we're always hanging out the doors and stuff. You want to retain those mags. So either airborne operation, having this is going to make that really easy to retain all of your equipment. And then working on vehicles as well, you never know. If you're rolling down the road and you just didn't even realize that you didn't have one of these tabs on there. Hey, no big deal. It's gonna retain your mags rather than having something like this. If you're not paying attention, stuff can fall out real easy. So, and then being on the ground and the whole shoot, move, and communicate, small unit tactics, CQB, when you start running and you're starting to gun, you don't want this pouch not giving you some sort of active retention and holding your equipment in place. With this, even when you pull these tabs off to the side, you're still getting a little bit of that active retention, and it doesn't matter if you pull them all off to the same side or you pull them off and this one on the very end is in the opposite direction. It's going to help hold all those pouches in place. And yeah, you might still have one come out, but it's going to be a lot better than putting all of these mags in this original pouch, where when you start running and you're moving on the ground, you just have to flip this thing upside down and everything falls right out. So yeah, just like that. So like you can see, I want you to see how that actually works. You throw these mags in and they just fall right out. So I mean, I barely have to shake this thing and they fall out. So with that said, that's why, and that's how you can modify the modify this piece of equipment from taking the standard pouch, putting that little bit of active retention on it with these elastic loops and retainers on there. You're just taking that shock cord, running it through, you have your little nylon pull tab, and then that's going to give you that active retention to be able to retain your equipment, retain your mags on the battlefield, so then that way you're not losing everything. So with that said, that concludes pretty much this video when it comes down to modifying and redefining issued equipment. So we'll see you next time.